All right, now I want to talk about outlines, and specifically I want to cover when to use a dark outline and when to use a light outline. Now, most beginners tend to use dark outlines for everything. So even if they had a light object, as it goes around, they'd have it darker. But that's probably not what's going to happen. And in this case, let's say I was just going to do this as if it was a painting. Well, there wouldn't necessarily really be an outline too much at all. It's going to be more the value of the plane. So I can take the values that are just on this plane and sort of fill it in. Now it will get a bit darker at the bottom where less light is hitting. But for the most part, it's going to be the same value as this plane. So now I'm really getting rid of the outline. And that's one way to do things. But sometimes you do get darker outlines. And when does that happen? And when does it get lighter? Well, one time it could get lighter is if you have a situation where you have light behind and you have rim light. So maybe you do have a strong light and it's coming from behind like so. But now what I've got to do is I've got to get rid of that light outline, right? I can't have this be dark. So then I'm going to have to make that bright. So here I'd be in a situation where I have light outline. But there's some other situations. Let's say the light isn't coming from, directly behind, or you're not getting rim light, or even directly from above. You'd get the same effect where it would be lighter. It would get lighter on the top than it does in the middle. So let's say that's not the situation. Okay, well then what other circumstances could it get lighter around the edges? Well, let's imagine this material is fuzzy. Or we could even imagine imagine this is like an arm and it's got hair on it. Okay, so if this was an arm and if it did have hair on it, and the hair is equally spaced, so let's just do some fake hair. Let's just say it's spaced in a very even way. Well, as it turns around, as it goes around this form, that hair, first of all, you're going to see more of the height, because if you look directly at something that's pointing towards you, it's going to look more like just a dot, right? But then as it goes around the edge, you're going to see it more straight up and down. So what's going to happen if this was hairy is you would see taller hairs on the edge, and then they'd sort of get more like dots near the middle. But then as you go around, you're going to see more of those hairs, but they're going to start overlapping. So the effect is going to be that it is darker on the edge and lighter in the middle. And even if the light was coming from maybe the top, it's still going to be, well, depending on how the light might catch some of these hairs and actually get lighter just because it reflects. But there's going to be, usually it's going to be darker on the edge as opposed to in the middle. But that's only if you have dark hair. Now, if we didn't have dark hair, let's say we had light hair, so just going to lighten up that hair. Now you're going to get the opposite effect. And so you see this in the case of like a peach, where a peach has, little white hairs, and then around the edge you get that peach fuzz. Same thing if you have like blonde hair and light skin, or even if you just had light hair, then around the edge it's going to get lighter. And this is useful if you ever want to make something look fuzzy. So let's say I want to make this fuzzy. what I can do then is just do that. I can just take a soft brush, and usually it looks more white or gray, maybe gray tends to, I notice with fuzzy things. And then you just go on the edge, sort of bring some of that in, and the closer you get to the edge, the more heavy that gray is. And then as it gets to the middle, you lose some of that. And you can do the same for the underside. So now in this situation, it's starting to look kind of fuzzy as you get things on the edge. So you can do this with anything that's, you know, if you have like a sweater and you want to make it look fuzzy, well, make it lighter on the edge. And you can also, of course, you can change the contour, so actually give it like a fuzzy edge. Of course, that's going to look more fuzzy, but that's one way of getting that effect where things are fuzzy, because you actually, with fuzz, it's just a lot of little, maybe not hairs, but like hairs, right, on the edge. So that gives it that look. Another time it might get lighter is if you had a very shiny surface, and then there's something called the Fresnel effect, which is that basically the planes that are tangent to your line of sight get more reflective. So let's say I'm looking directly, like my eyes like looking directly towards this thing. Well, this plane is sort of towards my, it's perpendicular to my line of sight. But as we go around, these become more tangent. So then these surfaces are actually going to be more reflective than the surfaces facing. And let's say there was the sky or something, and the sky is a bright value. Then you would get a case where you would get, you know, much lighter because it's reflecting. But that's with very smooth surfaces, but it's just another case where it might get very lighter on the edge. So you've really got to think about what your material is. And so if you're drawing a person with skin and then they have hair and it's dark, then you'd want to get dark around the edge. If it's light, then you want to get light. And if it's anything else, like for instance, let's say you had red hairs, well, as long as they're spaced evenly and like you've got dots, and well, they're not dots, they're like little hairs, but as you get around the edge, those have more chance of overlapping. So it's just going to get more red then around the edge. So that's some information about outlines.